D, what up?
What's up, man?
How'd it going, man? I don't know what was going on. I have never had that issue ever when I
Yeah,
was going live on IG. Never, man.
that was my first IG live, so I don't know
Yeah, no,
exactly.
I don't know. Like I said, I normally use it a lot.
Okay,
I've used that. I've used StreamYard as well. So appreciate you being patient, man. I don't know what was going on there.
nah, I
That's weird.
appreciate you, being patient with me because
No,
how does everything look good?
yeah, you're good, man.
All
You're
right, cool.
good. You're good. We
Uh,
got our old AFC West.
yeah, I had a different shirt on. You can't talk. You came out with your shirt. I was like, wait, hold on. It is today's first day of football, so
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Sports fam, appreciate you all joining. Let me just say this: I have the pleasure of sharing the platform with this brother on Esports Extra on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursday nights. Man, respect this guy a lot. We are building a fellowship as well. So again, man, appreciate you taking the time, man, and wanted to certainly have you on so we can talk about some of this stuff in the NFL, man.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm looking
So
forward to it.
yeah, yeah. So before we get started, let's talk about tonight. What are
Hmm.
your expectations tonight? Who do you think is the favorite? What are you expecting to see? The whole nine, man.
Oh man, I expect Kansas City. Kansas City, we got Houston tonight. Kansas City home opener. The Super Bowl champion normally plays on this particular night, and they have a really good record. I don't know if the Super Bowl champ has lost on opening night the following year.
Yeah.
If they have, it's only been one team, but I can't think of who it was. But I expect Kansas City to roll tonight. Um, Watson just got a big contract for for Houston, but I question his weapons, what he has, because they let
Yeah.
D Hop go. DeAndre Hopkins is gone. They got Brandon Cooks there, but I believe he's dealing with an injury.
Yeah.
Um, some of the other wide receivers, Kenny Stills is cool, but he's not a one or a two. He's really a three
Yeah.
to me, if you ask me. And some of his other weapons, I think, are kind of unreliable. And
Well, what do
also,
you expect from David Johnson?
we don't know.
Yeah.
His injury that he had prior wasn't to his legs, so his legs should be fine. He had a
Right.
problem with his hand, his finger. Um, he was a good running back prior to the injury,
Yeah.
so he
Yeah.
should be fine. New offense, but we just have to wait and see what he delivers tonight.
What do you think about what Arizona gave up to get D Hop? I know that was when the deal happened, people thought, Arizona. I'm sorry, what Houston gave up or what they received in return, right? People thought that they didn't receive enough for D Hop. What's your thoughts on that?
Anytime you give up a receiver the caliber of Hopkins, you and I have talked about this. I think he's one or two, either the best wide receiver. People could talk about the receiver in New Orleans who had the big contract,
Michael Thomas and
Michael
Julio,
Thomas.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a Michael Thomas guy and a Hopkins guy.
You like
And
hands
I
guys.
like hands guys, and
Yeah.
those guys they use their hands a lot.
Yeah.
Those guys are 1A, 1B. When you're giving up guys like that, you want to make sure you get enough in
Yeah.
return.
Yeah.
Houston has a bad reputation when it comes to losing people, giving up people. They gave up Clowney. They've
Yeah.
given up several guys, and they don't look good. The head coach slash GM
Yeah.
hasn't.
What do you think about their structure? Yeah.
It doesn't. A lot of coaches will tell you that doesn't work. It's
That's
hard.
hard.
It's
That's
hard to do
hard.
that.
Yeah.
I know Mike Holmgren, did it years ago in Seattle. It's a tough business to wear those two hats. You can't
Yeah.
try to be coach and then you're trying to be, a GM as well. It's really, really tough. And I think in Houston's case, I don't think it's really worked out too well for them. They've gotten fleeced a couple of times in some of these
Yeah.
deals. And now you're
Yeah.
looking at, they went and gave Watson all this money. He's a good quarterback. I think he's still improving and rising, but you got to make sure you have pieces around him. You're going to see what David Johnson brings to the table tonight. Hopefully, they can continue with a good, solid run game. But his
Yeah.
receivers, and there was nobody better than Hopkins. He was
Yeah.
reliable.
Yeah.
You know, when you look back at Hopkins, his career so far, he's caught balls from 10 different quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's
And he's
crazy.
still putting up numbers. So it doesn't
Yeah.
matter who's throwing him the ball. So Watson is going to miss him.
Yeah.
He's really going to miss him.
Especially when you take into account that, I mean, I know that they committed a lot of money to Laramie Tunsil, but that offensive line is suspect, right?
Yeah.
So, and you see all the punishment that, I mean, I know Deshaun Watson likes to get outside of the pocket and make plays, but that dude takes a lot of punishment, man. So, to your point, to have basically one of the best receivers in the league act as a security blanket for you, and he's not there, that's going to be a tough road to hoe, I think, man. So, no, I agree with everything that you're saying. So let's talk about, I know we talk about this a lot on the show, your fantasy picks. Or let's talk about your team in particular. Okay. And also, too, are there some sleepers out there or some people that you thought, man, I wish I could have acquired that guy? Or if I don't want insider information, man, so I don't want to cripple your trade opportunities in the future by you giving me too much information. And so give me, if you can, give me a little insight on that without hurting your team.
When this particular job, I'm in a 12-team league, and I kind of went running back with the first two picks, and then I went wide receiver. So on my squad, I have your tailback, Josh Jacobs.
Let's go.
That was my first pick, and then I went Joe Mixon with the second. And then, I knew in the second round, most people are taking the tight ends, Greg Kittle, and Travis and Kelsey. So I knew I wasn't going to get them. So I started looking for Ertz for Philadelphia, the tight end, but he was gone. And, it was tough, but I wound up on for my tight end, I wound up picking up Gronk, hoping for some nostalgia, some good things between him and Brady. I picked him up later on. I have Tyler Lockett that was sitting there, I believe, in the fifth. I thought
you had to go with your guys.
Yeah, well, it was value.
No question.
I was actually, I'm looking at, I got guys in my queue. I'm looking at quarterbacks to see quarterbacks going off the board. I'm comfortable with the two tailbacks, and I see Tyler Lockett sitting there. I picked him up. And then I'm starting looking at Watson and some of these other guys, Russell Wilson was gone. And then it is the craziest thing. My quarterback of my team, it was just like he's left for dead. And I was talking to one of my boys last night. He's a Patriot fan. He's from Boston, but he lives in Chicago. And I wind up, my quarterback is Aaron Rodgers. And it's not bad, but it's like this guy is sitting out there in like the 10th round.
Yeah.
It's like people now, when you talk about Aaron Rodgers, they kind of talk about him like he's not good. Like he's above with something.
Yeah.
He's like an afterthought because it was him, Roethlisberger, and Brady. And I could have had to pick up those three, and I took Rodgers because of the mobility. But I'm not crazy about his weapons. Green Bay has really not helped this guy out.
No, not at all.
Receivers
not at all.
Not even.
And what'd you think about their pick then? What'd you think about their pick?
They picked the quarterback.
Yeah, right. So
they're already looking towards the future.
Man.
They're not thinking about now.
Right.
But I think Aaron Rodgers is good enough that his guys are young. We don't know what they will be. But when you have a good quarterback, sometimes the good quarterbacks could bring the best out in their players. So we'll see with some of the young receivers that he has. But they also picked up a tailback or a big bruising back from Boston College. Guys, I looked at some film of this guy. This guy is huge. He's like 6'1", 245. Oh my God!
He's taking it back to how it used to be, right? Like,
he's third string right now, but Aaron Jones is not the biggest guy, and he gets dinged up from time to time. So we might see this guy sometime this season. It's going to be real interesting this football season. Hopefully, with the COVID still lingering, and some stadiums having fans and not having fans, that the NFL can make it through this season.
So you said a couple things that sparked a couple questions for me. One, when you talked about Gronk, And of course, we know Bruce Arians is great at what he does as a coach and offensive mind, etc. We also know that he's also has systems where quarterbacks take shots downfield, and that means for the health of a quarterback when you take shots downfield, when you're waiting on plays to develop, waiting on guys to get open, etc. What do you think Tampa will do with Tom Brady, knowing that maybe the arm strength isn't what it was 10 years ago, and then two, the mobility as well? Do you see Arians sort of tweaking the system some to accommodate the talents of Brady, or what? How do you see that working?
He would be a fool not to. I mean, Arians likes to throw the ball down the field, but you're bringing in the GOAT. So you adjust to what he likes.
Right.
Okay, what you talking about? You need to adjust to what he likes.
Right.
And Brady's been doing this for 20 plus years.
Man.
So you got to tweak it. I would expect for Brady to definitely lean on Gronk because that's what he's familiar with.
Right.
He can trust him. Trust is going to be an issue. Getting continuity with your receivers. He knows Gronk. And Gronk knows Brady. So that's his first security blanket. And now Mike Evans is hurt. He's got a hamstring. So now you have Gronk and you have Godwin. So and Godwin's a young beast. So and hopefully they can build some rapport. But starting out, when Brady's in trouble, when he needs something, I would expect him to go back and look for Gronk. But I know Arians likes to throw the ball down the field, but and he's got some young pups. He's got some young good receivers and the tight ends. And they got 3 good tight ends. We talking about Gronk.
OJ Howard.
Exactly. And Cameron Brate are there. They're good receivers. So he's got some guys in the middle that he can hit. So he doesn't have to be bombs away all the time. You don't have to put a square peg in a round hole. So I think Arians is smart. They got a window right now. That offensive line was in the top 10s of offensive lines, and they're not bad. And now hopefully you add Fournette. You add him to the mix. I would think it's going to take him a couple of weeks to get up to speed, and he has to be able to pass block if he wants to stay on the field, because you can't let Brady get plastered. But now I see situations where you can go 2 tight end sets because they got the tight ends. And
they do.
If they would want to do a little ground and pound, maybe if you're up in a game, you want to run out that clock, they could do that. I think they have the pieces to do several different things. And I've said this for months. In my opinion, it's New Orleans' division, but it would not shock me if Tampa challenges that. Because I'm not crazy about Carolina, and their defense is not very good. Atlanta's Atlanta. I think Atlanta might be in the mix, but they're not a big threat to me.
It's funny that you say that, because I'm always wary of teams that can beat anybody and also lose to anybody. Right. And to me, that's been Atlanta over the last few years. It's like, they have enough talent, and Matt Ryan can win you a game, but they have enough talent where they can rise up. And I know that's one of their sayings, but they can literally rise up and beat anybody.
Right.
But then they can also lose to the worst team in the league, right? Like they are just been, it just seems as if, and that was kind of what happened to them in the Super Bowl, the 28-3 Super Bowl against Brady when they, but it's just weird to watch them play. And I don't know what it is. And to your point, I don't know if it's the defense. I don't know what it is, but they're just one of those teams that, again, if you're a really good team, you worry about them because they can beat us. Right. And then, if you're a bad team, you're like, you know what, we could probably steal one against a team that's pretty good. So, so I see them doing that again this year. So I ask you the other thing too. We're talking about fantasy, and you talked about COVID. And we've talked about this on the show, but I want to hear your thoughts. What teams do you think do the best job of evaluating college personnel from a draft perspective? And how do you think teams will be creative this year with some of the best players not playing this year because of opting out because of COVID, which I don't blame them at all for doing? So give me some of your thoughts on that.
I think it's going to be a crapshoot. And I think that the next year, maybe 2 years, I think the scouting department is going to be huge.
Man.
because you're not going to see film from 2020. You have to go
Yeah.
back to 2019 to
Yeah.
look at film. And it's going to be tough. I think the draft is going to be a crapshoot. It's going to be a lot of hits and misses because they've missed they've missed a whole football year, college football
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
So how good your scouting department is, how good your research is on certain guys, the temperament, the video,
Yeah.
you know,
Who character will mean a lot too,
yeah,
because for me, like one of the things for me is, especially when you talk about it, talk about it from a basketball standpoint. I guess you could say the same thing in football. When one of the things that I would do, D, when I was scouting, I actually stopped asking coaches if said player that we're talking about, player X, if player X is a hard worker, because things are so structured for the players now in terms of going to school in the summer, all of the practices, you got to do weights, you have to do film, all of these things are mandatory now. So with that being said, I don't even think you even have to ask if someone is a hard worker, because of all the mandatory stuff. They're going to have to work hard anyway, to a certain extent, right? They're going to have to put in a lot of hours because you have so much that's structured now. I think the thing that I often ask now is, when I'm looking at players, is how much do they actually love the game? Because the hard working part is taken out, but how much do they really love it? Because that will tell you if, okay, we have all of this structured stuff that we have to do, how much you love it will tell me how much of the extra stuff that you'll do. Right. And because it used to be, when you didn't have all of this structured work and you couldn't have, hours where the players could be on campus during the summer, you used to have to ask, well, how hard do they work? Because that required that extra work. Now, with all of the mandatory things that they have to do, like, I think everybody to a certain extent is a hard worker, because you have to be.
You have to be.
Yeah. So who do you think from in the NFL, give me 2 or 3 teams that you feel like do the best job of evaluating talent in the draft, massaging the draft, moving up, moving down the board, things of that nature to fill needs. Who do you think does the best job at that?
Well, just going back to your point, I know, because I follow Seattle. I follow all the teams, but Seattle really closely. They are definitely one team that always looks for the guys that love the game. Do you love football? And there's been guys out there I've seen before. I'm like, that'd be a good guy, for Seattle to pick up. And then you hear, well, he doesn't love football. They want the guys that love football.
Right.
And sometimes the draft is hit or miss. The Seahawks have hit on some guys in the past, and then they whiffed on guys in the past.
Yeah.
I can name a couple of offensive linemen. Like, what the hell were you thinking? But Seattle does a decent job, and then Seattle has this thing with always compete, and they're the one team that free agents know, if I don't get drafted, I can go to Seattle and make the club sometimes. Yeah. You'll get a fair shot to make the team. Trying to think of who else does a really good job. I think Kansas City, Andy Reid and those guys do a good job with picks. Andy Reid. Green Bay's, well, I don't say Green Bay's not too bad. They did a good job with the last 2 drafts with the cornerbacks that they picked up. Their secondary has gotten better.
Yeah.
But we're gonna have to see a lot more of that without the college football. That scouting department and doing your due diligence and studying guys, because other than the first couple of picks that people say are no brainers, when you start getting into those. The back 5, after pick number 10, some of these guys that you haven't seen in over a year, you might not even be able to. Well, you have to. Everyone has Zoom now. You can do some Zoom calls and talk to guys, but to be able to sit and look them in the eye, you might not be able to do that for a while. So it's going to be tough.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that too, because one of the things when you see, like you were saying with Seattle, there were times that they've whiffed on guys, and they do a great job, but there are times when maybe we didn't get this pick right. I think because it's an inexact science, one of the things that you have, D, when organizations allow, and we talk about this a lot, when organizations allow their football people to be the football people, and the owner or the owner's children aren't the ones that are quote unquote making the picks, right? And influencing the draft so heavily where the football people don't feel empowered to really do their jobs. When you are empowered to do your jobs, you take some chances. And and more times than not, if you're good at it, a lot of those chances pan out. But some of those chances don't, right? I think about with the Patriots. When I was living in Boston, I remember when Troy Brown was playing on both sides of the ball. He's playing DB as well as getting his snaps as a receiver, right?
Right.
And he was serviceable as a DB. Would I say he's one of the top, 50 DBs in the league? No. But in a pinch, he was serviceable.
Right.
But you don't get that type of production if your ownership and the people that are signing your checks as the football people, if they don't sort of get out of the way and allow you to do your job, right? And so
Dallas.
Right. Right. So to your point, this year will be interesting because now, like you said, now you can only go off of film only. Will the people because oftentimes the people that interfere in the draft aren't up and down the roads, going to, Podunk, Kentucky to go watch a player play who may be a third or fourth round pick, right? They're not doing that, but they are on draft night, they're in the room trying to influence the decisions. Right. So with that being said, now it will be interesting to see if they'll move out of the way or if those people that are already people that, hey, I watched this guy on YouTube, if they're going to be even more like that, because to your point, that's pretty much all you're going to have. So it'll be interesting to see how the teams do this year in the draft. So you brought up Seattle. I got to ask, man, how does a New York guy become a Seattle Seahawks fan?
It's a long story. I don't want to take up all your time, but basically, born and raised in Queens, and my first couple of years on this earth, I didn't live far from a stadium. It was called Shea Stadium, which is no longer there. That's where the City Field's there now, where the Mets play. I could walk. I could literally walk to Shea, and I knew I was a Jets fan. I love the Jets. That was my squad. The Jets. So always support New York teams. I wasn't big on the Giants.
Richard Todd, Freeman McNeil.
Yes. And it's funny that you brought his name up because he's the reason I'm a Seahawks fan. So I love the Jets, man, but I could not stand Richard Todd. He was killing me, man. These guys always throwing interceptions. And it was one, I must have been like 12. And he threw a pick one day and I said, I can't do it. I couldn't do it anymore. I turned the channel, because back then we didn't have remotes. I had to get up. I turned the channel, and the Seahawks were playing. I want to say they were playing the Raiders, and they were getting their heads beat in. And but I love the fact that there was no quitting those guys, and they kept. When you thought that game was over, they kept coming back. They had a quarterback named Dave Craig.
He was
6 feet, 196 pounds back then. He went to Milton College that doesn't exist anymore. And he was the underdog guy. And I liked his story. And I gravitated to them. Kirk Warner was around then. And I've been a fan ever since. And I've never been to Seattle. But anybody that knows me, I'm diehard Seahawks. And to the point where I was telling you, we didn't get into the story, but when they came to New York for that Super Bowl. That year, I was telling my friend, like, this is the year. If they don't get to the Super Bowl this year, it's a bust. They got the dogs. They can do it. And when they got here, my son was like 2 months old. And a long story short, my wife made me go to that game. I had no intention of going to that Super Bowl. I was comfortable to sit at my house in my living room to watch
and hold your son in your hand, right?
And like I said, people know how much I love that team. And my boy said to me, the deciding factor is I wasn't going to go. My boy said, Derwin, that's your team in your stadium in your city. It'll never happen again. He said it'll never happen again. And I was like, you know what? You're right. This is from a Patriot fan. I said, you know what? You're right. And I went and I sat in that end zone and I was surrounded by 12. And it was an aura. Yes.
It
was the day before I was in Manhattan because they had the whole Super Bowl Boulevard and everything, and it was 12s everywhere. You could feel it.
Yeah.
And even the train ride, Jersey Transit, when I went to the stadium, they were everywhere. Yeah. When you got into that stadium, you could feel the 12s. It was just an aura. I'm like, did these cats just took over the building?
Yeah.
And then within the first couple of plays, it was the second quarter. That game was over. Because I'm like, I know Peyton Manning is good, but he ain't scoring 23 on these guys.
Yeah, right.
It ain't happening. And,
right.
It was that Orange Crush was silent, and I tell you what, the only time we sat down was at halftime to watch Bruno Mars. I stood the whole game. And the last thing I'll say about that game, the kickoff in the second half, Percy Harvin, his back is to me. I'm in the end zone. I got great seats. I'm in the end zone, and I'm watching the ball. I look at Percy. I watch the ball. I look at Percy, and I said, that ball is short. What is he doing? And the ball, I watched it bounce in front of him. I said, damn it. And he scooped that thing up and he took it to the house. I'm like, ball
out, man. man. You know, and it's funny that you say that too, because, growing up in LA, I'm a USC fan, football fan. And going back to, dating myself here, but Charles White was my guy, right? Okay. And that was my guy. And so, at that point in time when Percy was coming out when he went to Florida, at that point in time, USC was getting everybody.
Right.
From every Pete was getting everybody from anywhere in the country.
And Pete recruited him. He wanted him.
Exactly right. That's why I'm referencing that, because I wanted him to go to USC so bad, man, because, they were getting everybody. And Pete's attitude and how he does it, how he did it at USC is so similar to how he does it with Seattle. It's basically like, man, if you are good enough, all that seniority stuff, and I'm loyal to this person, if you are good enough, I don't care where we draft you. I don't care if you're undrafted free agent, you come off the practice squad, you're a first round pick, you're a 6th round pick. It doesn't matter. If you're good enough, we're not sort of tied to how oftentimes, and we see this in sports, where people will invest, either it's a high draft pick or a lot of money in a particular player, and they will do everything to try to make that work. Right. And they'll have someone on the depth chart behind them that's actually better, right? But they're like, no, we spent the 1st round pick, or we gave this guy X amount of money. Because to your point about Russell Wilson, they had committed a bunch of money to Matt Flynn.
Yeah.
And it didn't take long before it was like, you know what, this guy's the better quarterback. And I respect that. So when you're in college and you see that, that's part of the reason why Reggie Bush went there, and other players, where they were like, look, man, if this dude, Mike Williams, Lindell White, they were like, this guy plays people. If you're a true freshman and you're the better player, we redshirt and we're playing. Right. So, it's crazy to see, man, how a guy that what I like about Pete is he shows that it's possible to be a player's coach, but also have a level of discipline as well. Right. Because oftentimes people are like, yeah, that guy's a player's coach, but they don't attribute discipline to being a player's coach.
Right.
And, so I like that about him, man. So it wouldn't hurt me at all if Seattle wins the Super Bowl.
I mean, and just to piggyback to your point, Doug Baldwin, Doug Baldwin came in there. He wasn't even drafted. Yeah. But he was allowed to compete. And by competing in practice in these games, he had a really good career for himself.
Yeah, he really did.
Richard Sherman. Yeah. I mean, Richard Sherman and Doug Baldwin, their own coach in Harbaugh, didn't even draft him.
Yeah.
And Sherman was a 5th, 6th round pick? I think it was a 5th, because Maxwell, I think, was a 6th round pick. They went 2 back-to-back corners, and both of them became Legion of Boom, part of Legion of Boom. Yeah. They got an opportunity. And then going back to this COVID and not having a normal off season with practices, and with the preseason, I heard Pete say he's cool with it because in college we don't have a preseason. Yeah. So it might be something with some of these other coaches around the league that have coached in college. Maybe they have an advantage because they're able to handle going through preparing for the season without a preseason. I know that the Hawks have done some scrimmages against each other, and then they've been piping in noise because I think all the teams are going to have crowd noise. We'll find out tonight.
Yeah.
Because the NFL, I know with Pete's practices, you have to turn the volume to a certain level and you have to keep it there. So they were trying to figure out what works. I'm not sure 100% what the NFL is going to do with these crowd noise. But definitely, this is going to be a real interesting season.
Man.
Because there's a lot of unknowns coming up.
No, spot on. So I'll leave you on this. I got to ask you this. You sort of, that was a great segue into what I wanted to ask you with this season. And you're seeing some prominent players coming back like Roethlisberger, et cetera, Brady in a new locale, Cam in a new locale, et cetera. So what are two of your kind of most interesting storylines that you'll be following this year and things that you want to see kind of play out?
The first one off the top, I'm a New Yorker. I believe that NY. And if you don't know anything about New York, we don't fool with Boston. It is what it is. And none of their teams, the Bruins, we don't care. Celtics, we don't fool with none of them. But you know what? I respect the hell out of Tom Brady, and I'm really interested to see what he does in Tampa. I mean, that's the.
Hold on. I think I lost you. Go ahead.
That's the guy, and that's the team because he has more weapons now than he's ever had. I know he's going to play with a chip because for whatever reason it didn't work out. Maybe they wanted to move on in New England. I mean, I'm just interested to see what he does because he's the kind of guy when he walks in the locker room, his pedigree speaks for itself.
Fast.
His resume speaks for itself.
Yep.
You'd be a fool not to follow this guy.
Yeah.
You're trying to get to a ship, you do whatever he asks you to do. If he tells you to stay late, you stay late. That's definitely what I want to see. And of course, I want to see how New England does, how Cam Newton does. To keep it 100, the Patriots are the Patriots. And until somebody takes the title from them in that AFC East, it's New England and Cam's for them to lose it, Dolphins to me are Fitzpatrick. He's streaky. They're an 800 ball club, a 500 ball club. Excuse me. They're 8-8. The Jets had years to try to wrestle that away from the Patriots. They just don't get it done. Yeah. And the team that I think that has the talent, is Buffalo. And I love their quarterback. I love his ability, but he is sporadic when it comes to throwing that football. He'll miss some of the easy throws. So. I mean, the Patriots did take a hit because they had a lot of guys opt out. So we don't know what that defense is going to be.
Yeah.
If they have a decent defense, that's maybe something that Belichick and Cam and those guys could rely on while they try to get themselves together. But when you look at their wide receivers, what do they really have other than Edelman?
Right.
Is Harry going to step up this year? Is this going to be his year?
We don't know. Yeah.
Who's that tight end?
Right.
I mean,
right.
I mean, there's a lot that we're going to unpack on Sunday to see what Cam looks like. So those are the two biggest stories for me. With Kansas City, they're good enough to repeat, but there's a reason why teams don't go back to back. There's a reason for it.
Yes. I'm glad you said that
because that injury bug could pop out of nowhere. And it just takes one or two guys. I mean, people forget Mahomes got hurt last year. He missed at least 3 games, but he was Superman. He came back and they rolled,
Yeah.
And that's a team with not a great defense. They got better towards the end with Spagnuolo, as defensive coordinator. Maybe they'll be better this year. We'll see. I'm hoping so because I got that on my fantasy defense. So I'm hoping they can Clark and those boys give me some sacks tonight. Yeah. But those are some of the interesting stories. That I'm looking forward to, but definitely that Tom Brady in Tampa. How high can he elevate that squad? Because he's worth a couple of games. The defense wasn't bad, but when you had Jameis Winston throwing 30 interceptions, and not to count the pick sixes.
He said he was balling though.
Oh my God, man! You can't turn in this league. You can't turn the ball over. You
No,
can't
you
give the
can't.
ball to the other
You
team.
can't.
You just
You
can't do
can't.
it. I don't care
No,
how
you
many
can't.
touchdowns you throw, but if you're
Right.
giving it back to them 30 plus times,
Yeah.
come
You're putting a
on.
lot of strain on your defense, man. You know,
Yeah.
no matter how high octane your offense is, no matter how. And Jameis is talented. Like, there's no doubt about
Yeah.
that. There's no doubt about that. He's talented. But, you know, to your point, you are putting a lot of strain on your defense. So, yeah, I agree with you. Also, in terms of what you were saying about repeating, just how difficult that is. And,
Yeah.
you know, because, again, we live in this era where because of we have everything at our fingertips, and immediately when somebody wins the championship, we immediately start talking about how many more they can win and things of that.
Dynasty.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's people don't understand how difficult it is to win it on any level, right?
Right.
Yet alone the level where you're playing with, and again, the best in the world at what they do.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I agree with you wholeheartedly there, man. So
I will say,
go ahead.
I will say this. You know, Kansas City's in the AFC. Who's the immediate threat to them? The Ravens. Tennessee was pretty good. You know, Tennessee was on the cusp. That's why they went out to get Clowney, because they see that window's open.
Yep.
Those are the two teams. After that, you know, the other team that people should be keeping an eye on is Pittsburgh, because
Yeah,
Pittsburgh's got a good defense, and Roethlisberger's back. He's
yeah,
everything to that squad. You know,
yeah.
their
And that
defense.
rededicated himself,
Oh yeah.
apparently. Yeah,
So you just threw a fourth team in the mix, and he's going
yeah,
to elevate his squad. He's a veteran.
yeah,
Other than those four teams, who else is there?
yeah, yeah,
Is Indianapolis going to rise up with Phillip Rivers? Meh, I don't know.
yeah,
So the road for Kansas City, I mean, the two immediate obstacles are the Ravens, Baltimore Ravens, and the Tennessee Titans. Off the top of my head, I can't
yeah,
really think of anyone else. Cleveland, no. I can't think of anybody else that's really going to challenge them
yeah.
out there in the AFC. I think the NFC is a totally different. I think you got many more
Man,
better teams in the NFC.
it's getting back to your point. It's getting back to those old days where before Elway said, you know, before he broke through, when
Uh,
the NFC was loaded, right? And it
right,
was just like whoever was coming out of the NFC, the AFC rather, was just going to get beat by an NFC team.
right.
You know, I remember Elway being blown out. I also remember the Chargers when they made it to the Super Bowl with June
Yeah,
Seau, and they
yeah.
got the doors
Smoke.
blown off of them, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah,
Because back then it was San Francisco and the NFC East. If it wasn't
yeah,
the
yeah,
Giants, well,
yeah.
the Washington football team, as we say now,
Thank you.
and the
Yeah,
Cowboys, I
yeah,
mean, they were ground and pound. Come get
yeah,
some. you
yeah.
know?
Facts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's changed since then.
yeah,
Um, but you know, Kansas City has the weapons. You know, Tyreek Hill is the cheetah. I love their tight end. Kelsey is my favorite tight end because he has such sweet feet. I like Kittle too. I call
yeah,
Kittle Baby Grunt because I think he's so hard to break down once he catches
yeah,
the ball, and he's a lot
yeah,
faster. But
yeah,
Kelsey is just smooth to me. And
yeah,
they got a couple of other young receivers with speed. I don't know what they're going to
yeah.
grow
McCole
into.
Hardman, yeah,
Yeah,
Hardman, and all those. Yeah, yep,
Robinson.
yep,
They're good guys, and
yeah,
what they need is a tailback. We're gonna see
yeah.
what this
What we're
young
gonna
new
see?
tailback from
Yeah, yeah,
LSU. What he,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Hold on, I think you froze on me. Sportsman, we're gonna wrap this up. We got to do this again. We got to do this again. Appreciate you all joining, and we'll do this again soon. Here, love having my man Dion Derwin Worrell, great sportscaster. Love having him on, and we'll continue to build with him and hear his insight on the NFL and all things sports. So, sports fam, you got to join in again soon. Take care.